The Order of Light presents We Are the Disclosure, Episode 6, with our guest, Judy Greene, as we explore the extraterrestrial phenomenon. Now is the time for those with experiences to speak. We are not waiting for the disclosure. We are the disclosure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Earl White.
And I'm Josh Miota.
With our special guest, Judith Green.
Hi.
And together,
we are the disclosure. Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Judith Green. She is a person who has been in contact with extraterrestrials. Not just that, she's also encountered many other things as well. And all of this was taking place in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, which is a place that is infamous with a lot of different activity. And she has been dealing with this phenomenon just about her entire life. She's been on a documentary that I was just honored to watch. It had Travis Walton and Stan of Friedman as well. And absolutely amazing stuff. Her story is incredible. And welcome to the show, Judith. So glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been all my life. I'm no spring chicken anymore. And my story started, I believe, when I was about 5 or 6. Vaguely remember. Those memories didn't really come back to me till I started having the real life experience abduction sessions in the 80s. But so it's basically been my whole life of all these encounters, all these experiences, lots of weirdness. Let me tell you, I think about it and I haven't had a what you would call a normal life as far as, UFOs and extraterrestrials and just strange phenomena happening over my whole lifetime.
Well, this was all happening in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, correct?
That's right. That's
and
right.
Can you give us a brief little history or some of the weird discoveries or paranormal instances and experiences that have happened in the Lake Superior area and Upper Peninsula?
Well, for one thing, when I was going to school in a junior college, in the UP of Michigan, I wrote a term paper or a research paper on UFO phenomena that took place with a pilot. I believe it was in the 60s, Air Force pilot that went missing flying over Lake Superior. I think that story was pretty famous. I don't remember all the details anymore. It's been quite a while since I wrote that paper, but he was missing. He went off the radar. They never did find him. There is a place out in the middle of Lake Superior they call Lake Superior Triangle. And I've just recently learned that underneath Lake Superior is a huge UFO base, a portal for interdimensional travel to and from this planet, which could stand to reason because Lake Superior is a very deep lake, very deep, and it's cold, and it's one of these lakes that's got its own personality. I mean, it's pretty wild. I mean, it can, sink a ship in no time and that kind of thing. So all of the mariner people know to use caution on Lake Superior because of the, just the craziness that it
almost like the Bermuda Triangle. It's like the Bermuda Triangle of the lakes, the Great Lakes.
Well, they have on Lake Superior these waves called the Three Sister Waves, and they are just up and down like this, and that's what can get a boat in trouble. A big ore boat, the Edmund Fitzgerald sunk off of Whitefish Point, and that was in the UP, outside off the south shore of the UP or Michigan.
And
North
have
Star,
they
actually.
have they made any have you heard of any stories of any discoveries or anything interesting being found in the lake, being from that area?
Yes, there was a friend of a friend who told us his story that he was with, he belonged to a not scuba, but a deep diving club from downstate Michigan. And they were all anxious to come and do a dive in Lake Superior because they wanted to investigate what was down there. I don't know if they had any kind of foreknowledge of this or not. I don't remember, but they took their boat up here and they went out in the middle of the lake. And I believe it was somewhere between Copper Harbor, which is the very tip of the Keweenaw Peninsula, jutted right out in Lake Superior if you look at a map, and Isle Royale. It was somewhere between that area that they went and did a deep dive. And when they got down to a certain level, they found a platform down there, several platforms, like they were concrete looking floors from ruins of buildings and some partial walls. And they knew that they were like, it was like a city or, a small city environment. That's what it looked like. And they were most enthralled with the fact that there was a statue with her arms up in the air above her head. Was a woman, like she had been holding a crystal ball. That was what they thought. She could have been holding some sort of a spear. And whatever she signified, whatever she represented, they didn't know. But they were so excited. That was a test dive that they did. And they were so excited that they came back up to their boat and they grabbed their cameras. And they went back down there to film what they saw. And when they came up, the Coast Guard was waiting for them. And they were told to board their boat immediately. The Coast Guard was on their boat. And they, the officers were on their boat and said, what did you find down there? Or did you take pictures? Is there film in those cameras? Blah, blah. They just ripped all the film out of the cameras right there. Wow. They destroyed the film. And then they took them out and they said, you have to get this boat out of these waters. This is territory you're not allowed in, And so they said, okay. So they followed them and they had to get their boat downstate and they had to go to in these interrogation rooms and they had to watch videos for like a whole day or two, sit there and be deprogrammed about everything that they learned. And it was just like, it was happening so fast and they didn't even know what their rights were. They didn't know anything that was going on, but these people were really serious that they didn't want anybody to know what was under the lake.
Wow.
So that was what my friend's friend had told us. I sat at her kitchen counter while he told this story, and he said it was just like they were just blown away by it. He remembered it all. I mean, they didn't deprogram him totally, but they didn't get their film. They didn't get to see their pictures. They only had what was in their mind, and they were being told that
they made sure they would stay silent and cover it
up.
That's
right. That's
and
right.
For the Coast Guard to be there, they must have been aware. This is an important fact. They must have known that structure was in that area. Why would they care to begin with just seeing a deep diving? They have to know that is there.
That's right. And there's been a lot of people who have seen ghost ships out on Lake Superior. I think all the Great Lakes have stories of ghost ships.
Yeah.
But my friend owned a cabin, the same friend I'm telling you that her friend was the guy that did the dive. She owned a cabin up on Eagle Harbor, which is up by Copper Harbor at the tip. And they actually did see a ghost ship out on the lake. Her son did.
No way.
And it was like in the fog, and it was an old ship. I want to say it was some kind of a schooner or something. It was very old. And it was like a time thing, a time warp. Oh, I got a time warp story too, but anyway, it was like a time warp, and they were really like, did we really see what we just saw? Nobody had like cell phones to get pictures in those days. It was just like you see it, and then you wonder if you really saw it. You know what I mean?
That's very interesting too, and something I want to note. There's not a lot of cases of the Coast Guard covering things up that people have shared publicly. And that
Right.
story is very valuable because in my family's UFO crash case, the Coast Guard, they were the ones that covered up the material with tarps and they secured the area. And
Yeah.
you never hear about the Coast Guard in UFO. It's always Air Force, Army, or Navy. You never hear about the Coast Guard, but they're a big part of it. So that's amazing. So clearly, Josh is out in Wisconsin. He's up kind of that way. And it's a spooky, wild place. Apparently, there's a Bermuda Triangle in Lake Superior. And on top of that, you got ghost ships, underground facilities under the lake, probably some portal to hollow earth of some sort. Who knows, you know?
Yeah.
Mind-blowing. So now that we got a little history of the area you grew up in, when did your experience, your contact with these beings, where and when did this all begin? And can you go over your experiences?
Well, I have more recently realized that this underground base, UFO base, is really real, because just through all my dream work and my abductions and the fact that I grew up on a lake, Torch Lake, which is just off of Portage Lake. If you look at a map, it's all connected to the big lake, where my cabin was when I was a child. And in that cabin, I remember there were 4 in my family, 4 children. I was the second oldest. All 4 of us would sleep in the loft because we were young. I think I was about 5 or 6 at this time, and we would sleep in the loft. And I would wake up some mornings with this feeling of, like, I want to say, like a skin anxiety. Like all of my skin was like prickling at once. And I would think in my head, why am I not itchy, but why am I feeling so strange? And I think it was ants. I felt like I was covered in ants. And that's how it felt. You know, these bugs all crawling all over me, but there weren't any. I'd get up and look at it, and there was no ants in my bed, you know. And that was my strange memory of a child that I think now, and I think about it now, it's almost the same feeling as you get if you're being taken or put back. You know, it's like a frequency thing. Like all your cells in your body have been vibrating at a different frequency. And I never talked about it. I never told anybody until more recently. I had talked to one of my brothers, and he said, you know, I think I had the same thing going on. It was like triggering something in his head, but he really couldn't explain it either. You know, we talked about being UFO abductions and things like that. And he said, yeah, it could have been. You know, he was open to it, but it's just, that was the beginning. And that cabin was like, when we spent every summer there, school would get out, we'd go down there, and a couple of days before school started, we moved back to town. But it was always a great place to be. We played in the woods. We did all kinds of things. We swam. We had a sauna. I mean, we lived in our sauna in the lake. Yeah. Our neighbor used to call us like these fish, you know, these Finnish fish that were in the water all the time. But it was a great place to grow up, and it was a comfortable place. So as we proceed in the story, a lot of my dream information, the surroundings that are used as I'm being told these certain things, they set me in that cabin. So it's a safety spot for me. It feels secure for me. So any information they're feeding to me, it's not like I'm out, you know, somewhere.
The cabin seems to be the screened memory. You're having the experiences, and they're using something that you're comfortable with.
Right.
Sounds like your safe place.
That's right. And it felt safe. It always felt really safe there. You know, like I said, we were part of nature there. We played in the woods every day. I don't even know how my parents would let us go into the deep woods. There were bear out there and everything, you know. We explored all over the place.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was my childhood to that point. But moving along then, my first real abduction that was very vivid was when I was in that second picture I gave you of the home in the woods that we were building, because we were living off grid. I was married, living off grid. I already had one daughter and was pregnant for my second one in my first trimester. And I woke up in the middle of the night. I can't remember where my husband was, because he had gone on fishing trips and different things, and I'd often been out there all by myself with my kids. But I mean, I was never afraid out there, but we were way out in the woods. We were more than a quarter mile off of a dirt road. And anyway, I sat up in bed, as the illustration shows, and I thought, who moved the moon to the front window? Why, to that big window? Why is the moon up at the window? Who put it there? And I'm going, the whole room was lit up. And I'm going, oh my God. And I just fell back in the bed, and next thing I knew, I was up on a ship. I was aboard a ship, and I was on this table. I was on a table that was, I couldn't move. I was paralyzed, and it was, my hands were strapped on, my legs were strapped on. It was a round table, and it moved. It rotated any which way they wanted to do it. And I totally just remember the noise the table made, because it was like a whining noise, like a motorized table. And I thought, wow, yeah. And I thought, wow, what is happening to me? And I was paralyzed to the point where I couldn't scream, I couldn't talk, I could barely move my eyes around. But as I looked over in the corner, not in the corner, but along the edge of the table I was on, there were 3 little gray aliens. And I just was going, in my head, I was going, what are you guys doing? And they didn't answer me or anything, but they pushed my right leg way up. They took the buckle off the ankle, and they pushed my leg so far up, I thought they were going to break my hip. It hurt like crazy. I was screaming. I was telling them, stop it. You're hurting me. You're hurting me. And it was like torturous. And finally, they just let it go. They put the leg back down, and I was trying to figure out, what are they up to? And next thing I knew, I woke up in my bed. And at that point, I heard the UFO leaving. I could hear this high-pitched whining sound leaving it. Then it must have been over the cabin or the house.
Was that more of a hum versus the mechanical sound? When it was leaving, it was more of like a hum, like a tone. Right. Wow. Right. And before you went up into the craft, you said you saw this light come to your window. Were you able to make a visual on the shape of the craft? No. Okay.
It was so blinding bright.
So bright, and then before you know it, you're on the craft.
That's right.
Wow.
No, I was. Oh, go ahead.
Do you remember any other sensation on the craft, such as like the cold table?
I don't remember that. I remember it hard. It's just like stainless steel.
Hard metal.
Stainless steel. Yeah. I don't remember it being cold though.
Okay.
But you now remember, I'm in my first trimester of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. After that, I don't know the exact time period there. It wasn't very long after that I had a miscarriage. I thought it was a miscarriage. And I think I told you, Robert, that I had gone to the bathroom, and it was just like lot of blood clots and a lot of blood. And I thought, oh my God, I'm losing this pregnancy. And then there was some little pieces of like white fleshy stuff in there. That's all I could tell. But I right away got a hold of the hospital, and my husband took me in, and I went and had a D&C. Then they scraped me, but they didn't say anything like they even retrieved anything. I didn't ask. They didn't tell. I don't know what that part of it was all about. But in my mind, I just thought, well, I must have just miscarried for whatever reasons, but right after that, I started to have these reoccurring dreams, one after another after another. I mean, it was almost nightly where they were bringing this baby to me, and they would show it to me. And then and I'd go, well, why can't I keep that baby? And this doesn't really look human. And what's going on here? But they were like these alien beings, but they were like camouflaged as nurses or care providers, human looking almost, but they would bring the baby to me and they'd say, no, you can just visit with it for a while, then we got to take it back. But every time they brought it to me in this short period of time, it was growing fast. It was growing really, really fast.
Absolutely.
At the point where I did send you that picture where there's a picture of her. It's a female, and she was really, I thought, very pretty.
She's beautiful.
Big eyes and a big head, larger than human, but she made a big impression on me, and I just wanted to be able to, at least understand what was happening. And I completely understand where you're coming from. Everything that happened with my mother. Unfortunately, I witnessed my mother's miscarriage, and during her pregnancy with me and others, she went through this. And this is a very, very common physical side effect that happens to thousands, if not millions, of women all around the world. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. It must have been really traumatizing. And it was confusing. Difficult. Yeah, it was confusing because there was like no explanation. I didn't understand. It was just like, what do I do with this? What do I do? I was just abducted by an alien that nobody believes me, and now I have a miscarriage. What do you do with all this information? I didn't know a whole lot about that program, the agenda that was running then, and so I did start to research it and found out more about the hybrid program later.
And do you, by any chance, know what species they are, where they come from?
I only knew they were gray little dudes with big eyes, the big black eyes, and the big heads. I didn't know what I didn't even know there were different species of grays. I'd heard about the grays, and I just knew they were the grays.
Yeah, they definitely sound Zeta Reticuli.
Yeah.
Am I right, Josh?
Yeah. The first time you said you saw it, you thought it was the moon, right? You're like, why did the moon change? Okay. When your dream after the first abduction, did the dreams occur like all year round for you too?
The dreams were actually that first, like maybe several months with that child. Then after that, I didn't have any more of those kind of dreams for that child. After it got to be that big and they brought it to me that last time, what I drew the picture, that was the last time I was able to hold her or see her. I didn't see her anymore. I didn't visit with her anymore.
Seems like it was more active at certain points, almost like when they needed you for something.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think it might have been for comforting a baby. After it was more of a child, they could do what they wanted with it.
Wow. And moving forward with this experience, did you have any other encounters with these beings after this initial abduction and the miscarriage? Oh, wow.
I did. I was taking a nap on the couch down in our living room, and I was just kind of dozing off. I wasn't really sleeping. I was aware of my environment and all of that, but I was kind of dozing off in that in-between state, and the three of them appeared in the living room, 3 little gray aliens. And I telepathically am looking at them thinking, what in the world are you guys doing here? Well, I had taken my partial out of my mouth because it was bothering me, and I had put it on the table, coffee table, and they picked it up and they were looking at it. And in their minds, I could hear them gack about it. They clicked. They're big clicking sounds. That's another thing I always forget. But they had that click, click, click sound to their speech. But they were talking about the partial as being something so archaic. Us humans are so stupid that we have these archaic appliances to put in our mouths if you lose teeth or whatever. And I thought to myself, well, what do you know? I was kind of a little testy with them. I'm thinking, well, what do you know? But they were listening to me. They were listening to my thoughts. And then I woke up completely and they weren't in the living room. So it was like they were there, but they weren't there. You know what I mean?
Almost in a different frequency.
Yes. And I questioned myself. I thought, did I have a dream? I didn't fall asleep. Oh my God, now, there was just 3 aliens there.
One way to clarify it, did you have any sense of smell? Did you smell anything?
No, I didn't smell anything.
So this was happening in a higher frequency. That would be a good way to know physical to a higher frequency. And it sounds like these things are vibrating in that place in between, places.
I've heard that they come, they can contact you more through your consciousness. We're in an awake, aware state. We're in a beta state. So they come in the alpha state, or maybe even in the delta state, but they come in which would push you more into a dream state. But they come in that generalized other frequency to make contact, I think. That way people can't grab them. You know what I mean? You can't get your hands on them.
Less blowback, and a lot of the paralysis that you were describing in your first abduction, you could barely move your eyes just enough to see these beings,
right?
And your body's stuck there. That really explains a lot of it and why they do it, because you're an easy target.
Yeah.
Wow. And Josh,
Judy, did you ever wake up with any markings when this was first happening?
I didn't, but I woke up bruised, feeling sore, like I had been dragged or beaten somehow.
What kind of bruises?
Well, not bruises, but did you ever play a sport and get hit really hard and then you're sore there, really so sore there the next day? You got hit by something.
Like a good old Charlie horse.
Yeah, but it didn't have it didn't show, but I would be so sore, like somebody was dragging me around, or you know what I mean, banging me around somewhere. And I'd question that. I go, oh my God, I had a rough night last night. Something went on. But there were so many times that I know I was on a ship. I just couldn't grasp the recall of it. But I'd wake up and I had that strong indication that I was taken last night. It was just like, they're coming for me all the time. And it wasn't only me, it was my kids they were coming for in these later years. Not at that time, because my kids were little at that time. But later, as the kids grew up and they were in their teens, they were after them too. This went on and on. Okay, my son bought a T-shirt for my daughter saying it's all fun and games until the flying monkeys show up. Because they referred to them as the Wizard of Oz flying monkeys,
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, and my daughter, my daughter would, say they were come out of her closet after her in the night.
Very interesting.
So, and my son had several experiences that he, for many years, didn't want to talk about. He hasn't lost the images or any of that, but too many people looked at us sideways and weird and rolled their eyes at us, and he didn't want to lose friends over this whole deal, but we all have lived with it all these years.
Unfortunately, that happens.
Yes. So after this time period, I had divorced. I left my husband. We moved down to Bessemer, Michigan. Now this is going west out of the Houghton area where I was from, through the UP going west. I started college there. I went to school. And during that time period, there's a whole nother episode of events. That's when the big stuff started. And I mean big stuff because we had visuals on UFOs and things like that. But abducted again, taken up through, I went to bed one night, and I could have sworn my son came into the room and said, "Mom." And I'm thinking, why is he awake? This is late. He shouldn't be up. Is he sick or what? And I looked over there and to the door where I thought he came in, and there was a gray little alien standing there. And the next thing I know, I was just totally, like paralyzed, being lifted off my bed, floated out through the window or through the wall and up into the ship. The ship was right over my house. And and that I remembered vividly. And there were three of them again there were on the table with me. And they were messing around with me again. I don't know what they were doing. They had me on that table. And next thing I knew, I was awake in my bed. Awake in my bed.
Same little gray beings that you saw in previous years, the same ones.
Yes. And I concluded then, they're tracking me, they're following me, they know everywhere I am. It's continuous. It's been continuous. And at that time I freaked somewhat about it, but we were also going right up the street from where we were living. There was like this mine on the hill, an iron mine that was closed down. And we would go up there and sit up there at night in the car with binoculars and watch the UFOs flying overhead. I mean, we knew they were UFOs. They weren't satellites. There were several of them at a time, sometimes 7, 8 of them flying around up there.
Wow.
And we did this often, really often. We went up there. And we would see the jets come from the Air Force Base in Duluth. The jets would come up there and chase them around at night. We'd watch them. And we'd think, oh my God, there's a lot of activity going on here. What's this all about? And one night we were up there with, I had this little escort station wagon, and my son and his friend were in the very back of the station wagon. And we were on the little road that was on top of that hill that we'd go to watch the UFOs. And I thought a car was coming behind me, and I pulled over off the side of the road because I wanted the car to go around me because I saw lights in my rearview mirror. And my son's there, "Mom, it's not a car. It's not a car. It's a UFO. And it's coming up out of the mine." And it came up. I mean, I was like, oh my God, we all looked, we all looked behind us and saw it. It came up, went back down, came up, went back down. It knew we were there. It didn't want to show itself. And it came up one more time, and it went like at an angle and zipped off. And that was a cylindrical one or a round one.
Wow.
A small one, like a scout ship.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, holy crap, that just came out of the earth right there, out of this hole in the ground and the old mine. And then we were just like, wow, they're closer than we think. And they're using this mine. Well, my landlady and landlord lived in the captain of the mine's house. It was a very old, big house on the side of that hill where the mine was. And she had told me all these stories of all the rumbling they'd hear underneath their house. There was all kinds of activity going on. Yeah.
After it was closed.
Yeah. All kinds of activity going on under there.
This has some resonance to Skinwalker Ranch and some of the sounds they've heard coming from underneath. Sometimes I think it's possible that these mines, when they're first constructed, the mine for stuff, eventually they might go a little too deep, bust into some sort of entrance, and then it gets shut down, but obviously still being used.
That's a whole another can of worms. It's a very fun lore. So hearing some of the old miner stories about them hitting stuff or being trapped in fires, and some guys coming out of the walls and pulling them out and saying, "You didn't see anything, but you're gonna live." Yeah. And then there's so many stories also, like that.
It's important to mention, and Josh is blacksmith, this mine was an iron mine. iron is a high conductor, you know, and it probably explains a big portion of why they're there to begin with in some sort of capacity. Wow.
Yep. Well, in that area, that was iron mines. Where I'm from, up in the Houghton-Keweenaw Peninsula area, that's all copper. Some of the greatest copper deposits in the world are there. They didn't get it all out. Goes underneath Lake Superior.
There's another one.
My grandfathers, two of them worked in that mine, in the Quincy Hill mine in Houghton, Hancock.
Oh wow.
So I have a history in this area, of my family. Well, anyway, after that, we were really gung-ho about this UFO hunting then. I mean, we were like really going for it. And there was another area we would go out into a field. We would drive these back roads and go into this open field and sit there and watch the skies there. Now, I remember one time, and I forgot all about this one. I swear a lot of the memories get clouded over and you just kind of don't remember, and then all of a sudden something brings them up. But we were sitting there in my car, and this UFO big light was coming at us, and it was like low in the sky, like a really low private plane. First of all, I thought maybe it was a plane or a helicopter. It was coming at us, and the light was getting brighter and brighter. And then as it approached us, and it wasn't that, maybe a half a football field away from us, I could see figures up in the dome-shaped cabin. I could see figures there, and they didn't look like aliens. They looked like people. Huh. And I thought we were like, what? You know how your brain just tries to put the picture together, and what is this? What's going on? I don't know. Am I really seeing this? And all of that, and that just flew over us and left. And that's the one I don't remember all the time. I blanked that one out for some reason. I don't know what happened there, if anything. But I'll continue with this story because my neighbors, and I promised I wouldn't mention any names on this interview because I didn't get permission from these people. But friends of ours were in their car. They went one night. My daughter and son were with them. They had their dog, and they went out into, I believe it was that same area looking for UFOs that night. I didn't go for whatever reason. And they came back with the most horrendous story. They said they saw a big ball of white light come at them really fast, and they didn't remember anything else but ending up back in her driveway with their car full of red clay mud. And they had it up to their knees. The dog was full of it. They don't remember getting out of the car. The last memory they had was the bright light coming at them, and they had 2 hours of missing time.
Man, this is ringing bells to Michael Clifford's story, isn't it, Josh?
Yeah.
Wow. And when you were talking about the craft you saw, the one that you have a hard time remembering about, we just had our good friend Michael Clifford come on, and his whole entire family, same situation, mother, 2 brothers, and him, 4 people, went through the same exact situation where they saw this craft come over them, and they all remember that, but they all have different memories and missing parts of times, and they were very confused on the exact time it happened and when it happened. It seems to be a common occurrence. So strange. Yes. Wow.
And the fact that there was all that mud in her car, and she had to have her car detailed.
Very strange.
Yeah, they had been dragged through the mud. That's what it looked like.
Yeah, and they weren't anywhere near the mud. How far was the mud from where
they don't know. They have no idea. They have no idea how they got that mud, where it came from.
So they couldn't even find red clay mud anywhere in the area.
Well, there is, because it's iron dirt everywhere. You know, I mean, there's different areas. But my thought was it at an opening of a mine that they got all that mud on them? Because that's basically how that mine was founded.
Makes sense.
the mine on the hill, the guy that, I can't remember the name of the guy that discovered the ore there, but the reason he said there's iron ore here under the ground is because the dirt was so red, when he was exploring.
So they could have this base of operations where they're taking these people and using that, iron mine as a little place to do the dirty work, I guess.
Right, or whatever they were up to. But I had also missing time coming from school one day. I had like 15 or 20 minutes that I don't remember anything. So I think I was interceded and taken from my car. I remember coming to at a stop sign in my car, entering the main highway. But I don't remember, right after I left the college, I don't remember that drive at all. None of it. It's all blanked out. You know how you could be daydreaming or something when you're driving, but you know where you are and what you're doing. I didn't remember a thing, nothing.
Wow. A lot of missing time. And we all know normally when that happens, there's something going on during that time.
Yeah. They were definitely following me, but there was another instance in that house too, after I was levitated up and out through the wall, where I woke up sneezing. I woke up like something was up in my nose, and I just had to sneeze and sneeze and sneeze. It was so irritated. And I quickly got the image of these beings standing on the side of my bed. They had just shoved something up my nose, and it had like a cat claw hooked on it. I don't know if they were putting a implant in or taking one out, but it felt more like they were taking one out, maybe replacing it with something else. I don't know, but they were standing next to the bed. It was the gray ones again.
Same beings.
Yes. And
which this is strange because you remember those with the gray beings, but you've had some other encounters where you have this missing time and you don't remember. So do you think that could possibly be a different group of characters? Because it seems you remember, you remember the grays.
It very well could be. In this time period, during this whole thing, I had been in studies, a lot of spiritual studies, and learning a lot of really cool things. Not so much, I didn't go down the alien avenue at all. It was more just spiritual insight and, bettering yourself and healing yourself and chakra systems and all that stuff. But the alien thing was like, I think because it was so young that they were part of my life, I think that I was being fought over. I do. I think that they were the program, the Gray's Agenda program, the Zetas. I think that they were after me, and I think that there was ones that came in interceded. And the reason I say that is because for a while we were on this quest that I had to find out who the little people were. I did tell you a little bit about this, but the little people were very important to me for some reason. I don't know why. I didn't know much about them, but I wanted to know more. And we were at a dream catcher shop down in Lac du Flambeau in Wisconsin. And we were just on one of these exploratory trips. We'd go and investigate and ride around in the country and do these different things and visit these places. And we stopped at this dream catcher shop, and there are beautiful dream catchers in there. And the woman that owned the shop, we were talking to, and somehow we got on the subject of the little people. And she kind of just looked at us like, oh, why are you so curious about the little people? And then we asked her, do you know anything about them? And she said, well, I can't really tell you about them. Mm-hmm. I can't say too much. It'll go against our code in our tribe, but we do protect them. And she kept pointing this direction. They're in that direction. They're in that direction. Well, the direction she was pointing in geologically she was in northern Wisconsin. She was pointing over to Bayfield, Wisconsin, which is by Ashland. Bayfield juts out. It's a peninsula that kind of goes out into the water there on Lake Superior. And there's a Red Cliff Indian reservation there. And she said they're well protected there in the red cliff.
That's
because it's right along Lake Superior. And I thought, well, is there an inner earth connection there? Or can they hide out there? What's the deal? But my thing was, when I came across Elena Danon's work and I ordered her book, A Gift from the Stars, she talks about the little people in there. And when I saw the illustration that she did of the little people, I couldn't help but I had drawn pretty much the identical drawing of the person that rescued me, that I got rescued from a ship when I was on a Zeta ship.
Was that the Lang?
Yes.
The Lang species.
Yes, I have a book here, and
which some people call them fae and fairies. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. That's them. But I sent you my picture of that. Mm-hmm. She was just so curious. I don't know if you can see it. She was so curious to touch me. She just wanted to touch me, like, oh, you're a human, I want to touch you. She was really friendly aboard that ship. But I had been put in this little compartment. I had been taken from someplace and shifted over to this other place in their ship, and put in this tiny compartment with this other being, this Lang, I guess, the little people. But I know that's what, after I realized, after Elena's picture and my picture were so much alike, I know that's who it was. Those were the little people that had rescued me from whatever was.
They are involved with a lot of rescues. They're known for that, so it makes sense. And that made me actually feel good. Some of your other experiences that you don't really recall. There's a possibility it could have been species like that or others that were trying to undo all the stuff the Zetas were doing to you.
Yes, and some of these experiences came in real vivid dreams. So some people say, oh, you're just dreaming, you just have a very vivid, very imaginative mind, you're an artist. And I think to myself, no, you have no idea what this feels like when you're in this state of being. You might think it's a dream, but you're questioning yourself in the dream. This isn't a dream. You know what I mean? It's really,
the subconscious is real. It exists. Yes. It's there. It's scientifically proven. Right. And what happens there is no different than your conscious. It's all part of the same thing.
So I had a dream that was very powerful. I was aboard a glass-bottom ship. Now, these beings were not nefarious or had anything to do with the Greys. They were tall, probably about 10 to 12 feet tall. There were two of them, one on each side of me, and they were pure light. Pure light. They didn't have a form to identify at all except the light. But they were talking to me, and I was flying in their ship with them. The whole ship was glass, like see-through. You could see through the floor, you could see through the walls, but we knew we were on a ship. And they were showing me we were flying over the United States, and they said that what you're seeing under you, we want you to be aware, is a crossroads, like a big X, a big cross that would go north and south, east and west across the United States. That's coming. Beware. I didn't know what they were talking about. I mean, this is like in the late 80s or early 90s that I get this dream. And then we flew up to Puget Sound, and they told me this is where the submarines are entering under the coast and going down into these tunnels underground. And they were telling me all this about these submarines. I'm going, submarines? What are you talking about? I don't know anything about submarines.
There's underground. There's underground, channels, rivers, going from California out to Colorado, and then starting to cut up right towards Michigan. Probably opening. There's probably another opening somewhere in Texas. It wouldn't surprise me. Very interesting. Wow. Yes.
And at that time, I knew nothing about the DUMs, the tunnels, any of this stuff that's coming out now. I didn't know anything about it. But have recently learned and gained a lot of knowledge about that. But to be told that, I'm thinking, well, where am I from then if I'm with these beings of light? showing me I must be protected, right? That's how I felt. I felt really comfortable and protected. And so these Greys and their programming, it's almost like there was a war going on about me, about who I am and what I still don't know. I mean, I know who I am as an individual, but I don't know where I fit in this bigger picture totally. I'm sure I'll learn as time goes on, but I've always felt like I'm taken care of. I'm okay. I feel like I was invaded. I really do. I don't buy into the program that people try to tell you made an agreement on a higher level to be a part of the hybrid program. I just can't. That doesn't sit with me.
That's right.
Doesn't sit.
I agree with you 100%.
And I think if that was the case, then why do we have these other beings coming and rescuing us from their missions?
Exactly.
Why would the little people come and save me? Or like in the Lane Danon, why did they come and save her off of that ship? You know?
Why were they trying to save my mother? You know, people don't ask for this. That people don't ask to be paralyzed and to go to trauma. People don't ask to lose their children, their babies, and only be able to communicate with them telepathically, but not show too much love and affection. You know, no mother would ever want that. It's heartbreaking.
No.
And the physical side effects. You know, when you miscarried, it wasn't, you know, a joyful physical feeling. So many women have a lot of menstrual problems. They have scar tissue and hemorrhaging on their uterus and so many other health issues. Why would anyone ask for that? You know,
and that's
ridiculous.
how I feel. I had those kind of female problems all my life, as far as, you know, bad periods and a lot of bleeding and a lot of blood clots and, you know, just very uncomfortable all my life.
Yeah, that's been the common occurrence, unfortunately.
Yeah. And so there was one more event that took place when I was in Bessemer, Michigan. My son was outside on the street riding bikes or skateboarding or whatever, and he came running in the house and he said, "You got to come out here. There's a UFO sitting right over our house." And I'm going, whoa. You know, I went out there, and sure enough, we stood on the street and looked up at this thing. It was a big triangular thing right above the house, just gliding really super slow, you know, like it was just cruising and sightseeing or something. And it had triangle shape to it with a light on each corner on the bottom.
What color? The lights?
Black is the lights. I don't remember. More yellow. I would say a yellow color.
Okay.
So, and the ship was black, but it was quiet. You couldn't hear a thing. Nothing. It was real stealth, and it just floated by really quietly, and then it went down the street. We jumped in my car right away and followed it. We chased it to see where it was going. And then it got down to the end of the road. The road ran out. I couldn't go any further, and it just went way off into the distance and took off. So I wondered if that was a ship that I was taken aboard, because it was the same time period, you know, where they took me up through levitated me and took me up.
Okay, so that sighting took place during that one abduction.
Yeah.
With the Greys, right?
Right.
Yep. Okay. Wow.
So I just, you know, this is stirred in my head for so long, and nobody to really tell it to that would listen. It's kind of hard. It's like living with a secret that, even if, like a rape, I was just telling somebody, a rape victim or somebody that's raped as a child and they could never tell their story, and they're damaged from it. They're literally damaged from it. That's kind of, I feel like abductees, what happens to abductees. Nobody wants to believe their story. They're ridiculed for it. They're put down. They're laughed at. I have good friends that have laughed at me over all this. And I think Well, there's really nothing I can do. I'm sorry. I'm glad it didn't happen to you, but don't tell me it didn't happen to me, because it did,
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it happens so much. And I'm sorry you had to go through all that. But you know what we're doing, Josh and I, we're making a community where people can come forward and connect with others that have had their experience. I had to watch my mother suffer with the same kind of ridicule, rejection. I've went through it myself, and it's one of the worst feelings because there's a lot of physical, emotional, and mental side effects. And sometimes what's worse than the actual encounters with beings from other worlds is dealing with the human beings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's actually worse than some of the awful things that happen in these abductions. The ridicule is worse than the experience. So people out there, please keep an open mind when people are sharing their stories. And no one has the authority to say someone's reality isn't their own. You can't.
Exactly.
Wow.
Since then, I've learned so much about the stars, the different beings from everywhere. And thanks to Elena, she's kind of put that out in a really good format to understand. I know this Earth has a long history of aliens coming and going. I mean, we're part of that race. Our genetics have been manipulated for thousands of years, and we've got many species in us, and that's all right, but we are also human. We're human, and we are our own breed, our own race, our own people, and we aren't a commodity for another race. We're not something that another race or whatever can control and handle however they want, so
absolutely.
I think the more people that come out and start talking about it, it'll get to the point where it's like more of a common thing. More people talking about it's become more of a common denominator, and once you get a common denominator across the different sections of life, you've got more leverage, more truth and validity to your experiences.
Absolutely. So, Judy, is there a way people can contact you to share your story?
Yes, I have an email, which is Greene, Greene, Judith, Judith, 8 @gmail.com.
Perfect. And everyone out there, that info is in the description. Make sure you check it out. Also, we are the Disclosure Podcast on Spotify and Anchor FM, along with Josh and I, our emails and our other social accounts. Make sure to check it out. If you have any other information pertaining to Judith's experience or what's going on in the Upper Peninsula and the mines, please reach out. She would love to hear your story or any additional information. That's what we're doing, right, Judy? Trying to put the pieces together.
Yes.
So please contact her, Josh or myself, and we really appreciate it, and we hope to see you next time. It was a pleasure having you as our guest, Judy. A lot of stuff for everyone to process, and I hope others will come forward and add a little bit more to this big old picture that we're trying to put together. So everyone's story is valuable, and now is the time to come forward. We are the Disclosure. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to set a reminder for up-and-coming videos. If you have had an experience, please email us at orderoflight777@gmail.com or wearethedisclosure88@gmail.com. If you would like to contact our special guests, information can be found in the description. Make sure to check out the We Are the Disclosure podcast radio on Anchor FM. For additional information, socials, and online store, go to the Direct Me link in the description. Whistleblowers, experiencers, and contactees of all backgrounds, Now is the time to come forward. Please subscribe, share, and give the video a big thumbs up. We are not waiting for the disclosure. We are the disclosure. See you next time.